Hi there and welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about JavaScript again. I recently tweeted on Twitter just a random question: should I create another JavaScript tutorial? And few people responded, including Freek van der Herten. He challenged me to create Wordle. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Alright, so I have a predefined index.html file here, which actually doesn't contain that much. We have a CSS file linked, a JavaScript file linked, which will contain our actual game functionality, and I have a div of game container. So I also have some CSS which defines some colors, and text transformation. We're actually defining our game container, our game grid. So we're actually going to use CSS grid here with a repetition of 6 rows and 5 columns, and a character box which will be containing our letters with a height and a width of 80, and also these 3 classes in here that we will be using in our JavaScript. All right, so we have an empty app.js file, and for starters, we're going to start off with a function called init, and this is actually the initialization of our game, and we're going to call it hello world in here. Hello world. There we go, and we're going to just call it real quick. There we go, hello world, which actually means that our JavaScript is loaded. Okay, so we have defined a game container in here. So we're going to start off with a const called game container, which equals to document.getElement by ID of game container. And this is actually the thing that we're going to be adding our game to. First of all, we're going to create a function called makeGameGrid, which actually takes the game container as a parameter. So we're going to call it makeGameGrid with game container as a parameter. There we go. And inside here, we're actually going to create a div for the grid itself. So const game grid document create element, and it's a div. And we're going to give the game grid a class name, so class name of game grid. There we go. And this here, we're actually going to loop over all the columns and all the rows. So for, and we're going to use I. So I equals to 0. And we're going to start off with 6 rows. And we're going to use another for loop inside here. I'm just going to define it O, which will be looping over all 5 columns. All right, so, and in here, we're going to refer to another function that actually makes the boxes for our letters. So make box. And we're going to pass on the game grid and the I and the O, because I and O will be representing the column and the column and the row, which are defined. So function make box. Okay, make box, and in make box, we're going to use the game grid, which is given to us, and the row and the column. And actually, I'm going to give a letter also, which will be nothing. All right. So this way we can define our box with nothing. For starters, in the beginning of the game, this will be nothing. So we're going to create a new constant, which will be the character box, and it's also a document create element, and it's also a div, And this time we're going to give it a class name again. So charbox.class name. And the class name will be equal to charbox. But this one will also have an ID, and I'm going to reuse the charbox here, but I'm going to put a dot here, and I'm going to expand it with a row, and I'm also going to change the column, the current column behind it, and this will actually give it an ID of charbox. For the first row, this will be 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so on. All right, so and we're going to give the charbox a text content of the letter. There we go. And well, this will be empty, but we can apply here a letter later to test. And then we're going to append it to the game grid. GameGrid.append child of the char box. There we go. And so this will be returned. And we're just going to return the char box. I don't know if we're going to use it later on, but just, yeah, let's return it. So this returns back to here. And actually, we have appended our char box to our grid. So now it's time to append our grid to our container. So game container.append child of game grid. There we go. Whoops. There we go. All right. So make game grid. And normally this should work. Let me check once. All right. So we have a grid of 6 rows and 5 columns with which contains nothing. So just to test this out, I'm just going to pass on letter X here. It's all X's. All right, so this works like a charm. All right, so the game grid has been created. So now we need a way to actually keep track of our game itself. This can be done by using something that we call in React and so on a state. So I'm just going to create a variable called GameState, and in this GameState, as actually a JSON object, I'm going to keep track of the game grid itself. And the game grid is actually a two-dimensional array, which is the first one, an array of 6 elements, and I'm going to fill and then map over it. There we go. And in this map function, I'm going to create an arrow function which defines another array, actually the second part of the two-dimensional array, which contains 5 elements, and we're going to fill it out with nothing. That is actually the beginning of our game, nothing. Then we have to keep track of the current row. And the current row, if we initialize the game, will be 0. The current column, so current column will also be 0 in the beginning. And then we actually, in our game state, we want to keep track of the hidden word. So hidden word is equal to something. And in the beginning, I will be, just create a quick... let me create a 5. There we go. And I just need horse, house, audio, Tesla, and let's go for plane. All right. So I've created a word list with only 5 words, but yeah, we'll replace it later with a bigger list of words. But for the hidden word will be a random function of the word list. So here we go. And I'm going to just go into moth floor of moth random, and moth random must be multiplied by the word list length. And this is how length. There we go. This is how we define a random word. So console.log and I'm just going to quickly log the game state. Game state dot hidden word. There we go. And I'm going to inspect the element, console, and the word is plain, house, horse, Tesla. So this works. We're getting a random word from our word list. All right, so next thing that we want to do is we're going to watch out for key presses. So I'm going to create a custom function. I'm going to collapse these two. A function that is actually keeping track of keyboard presses. And inside this function, I'm going to check the document.body on key down events. And it's an event, so I'm going to give it an E for event arrow function. There we go. And actually the key that has been pressed is event.key. Simple as that. All right, so let's alert that real quick. Key. Oh, and I forgot to keyboard press. There we go. So H. Oops, I need to close this. H alerts H. D alerts D. All right, so that works. Okay, so next up, I want to check if the key that is pressed is the backspace to remove a letter, the enter to enter the word, or if it's a letter itself. So we're going to start off with the enter key. So if key equals to enter, there we go. Or if the key is equal to backspace, and I think it's a capital B. So these two are pretty easy to be defined, but the third one is if it's a letter. So we have to check if it's a letter. So is alphanumeric, this is actually a function that we're going to create later, is alpha, then we're going to do something. And we're going to alert enter pressed. There we go, enter pressed, and this is backspace letter pressed. Okay, so the function is alpha is something that I'm going to create real quick. Function is alpha, and actually the key that has been pressed. And it's quite simple. I just want to return a true or false here. So if the key is actually length is 1, and if the key, and this is actually a match function that we're going to use, and inside this match function we're going to enter a regular expression, so --i, and inside we're going to accept everything from A to Z. That's it. So if I'm going to test this, this is an enter. Now I'm going to press the backspace. This is backspace. And I'm going to just a random letter. A letter has been pressed. Great. So this works. Next up, I actually want to add the letter to the grid if I pressed the letter. So I'm just going to create a function which adds letter of the key. There we go. And function add letter which accepts the key. Okay, so first of all, if we're at the 5th column, we don't want to add an extra letter to the grid because it's impossible. So we're going to start off with an if statement for the game state. Game state dot current column, if that equals to 5, the last column in the row, we're going to give an early return and we're going to discard all the rest. If not, we're going to actually game state, game grid, and we're actually going to add the letter that has been pressed to the game grid. So it's a two-dimensional array. So game state, game grid, game state dot current row. We're going to start off with a row, and game state dot current column equals to the key that has been pressed. And we actually want to update the game state as well, that the current column jumps to the next column. So game state dot current column plus plus. That's it. Let's test it out. Well, not working because, let me check once. Oh yeah, we while we're making our game grid, we looped everything and we have put actually the everything to the grid, but we still need to update our grid after every update that we have to do. So after the add letter or delete or whatever, we need to update the game grid. And this is actually a function that will be used to update everything on the grid. So function update game grid. There we go. And update game grid is actually going to do the same thing as make game grid, actually looping over all the columns and the rows, but actually we're going to use the game state to do so. So for I equals to 0, and as long as it's the game state dot game grid dot length. Next up, we're going to loop over all the columns. So for O is actually the game state dot game grid. The first array in there will be I because we looped over it previously. And then we're going to actually grab the charter box on which the letter must be applied. So let char box equals to document get element by ID. And remember, we gave it the name like so. We're going to copy it. There we go. And this time row will be I and col will be O. There we go. And then we're going to change the text content. And we're going to set it to the game state, game grid, two-dimensional array, the current I and the current O. There we go. So if we run this again, whoops, I just think game grid. All right, so if we run this again, H, backspace, press. So I just want to house, whatever, and I need to implement the next functionality. So in here, I want to, if I hit the backspace, I want to delete a letter. And the letter, that must be deleted. It doesn't matter which key it is, because add letter took the key, because we had to actually put the key to the grid, but this time we need to remove some. The same thing will be applied as delete letter. There we go. We're also going to start off with an if statement, but this time we're going to check return. We're going to check if the game state current column is 0, because if we're at the first column, it's useless to delete the letter because there is none. So game state dot current column equals to 0, return. Then we're going to actually delete the previous column, because if we entered the first one, we'll be jumping to the next one. But if we hit the backspace, we want to delete the first row. If we're in the fourth, we want to delete the letter in the third row, and we want to replace actually the active column to the third column. All right, so game state dot let me check game state dot game grid, and actually we're also going to use the game grid current row again, but the game state dot current column -1, and this will be set to nothing. And also, same thing that we did here, we're going to update our current position, game state, current cul, -1. All right. So if I'm going to test this again, how? Backspace, backspace. So I can easily backspace and redo all the steps that I did. Great. That works. Next up will be, whatever happens when we hit the enter key. So if we hit the enter key, I just want to check if, the word, what is the word that we entered? So let word, and we're going to create a function for the get entered word, like that. And the function, and here function get entered word. Okay, so we're going to return. I'm actually going to return the game state dot game grid, and we're actually going to use the game state current row, and we're going to the thing that we need to do is we need to actually grab all the entered letters in this row. So we need to loop over all the columns and concatenate them together. So we're going to do that with the reduce function, and the reduce function actually gives us the power to get the previous value and the current value and blah blah blah. So we're going to create an arrow function which gives us the previous and also the current. Arrow function previous plus the current. So this will concatenate the word together. So let's quickly check this. Alert word. Refresh, and I want horse, enter horse. Refresh, Tesla, enter Tesla. All right, great, this works. So next thing I want to do is I want to check if my word is actually a valid word. So if my word is valid, is word valid, and I'm going to pass on the word. But if this returns, I want to alert the word is valid. And if not, I want to actually alert that it's not. So the word is not valid. And this is lowercase v, lowercase v. All right. So Tesla should be valid. Whoops, it's not working. Oh, okay, great. Is word valid? I forgot to define the function. So so function is word valid and is the entered word. There we go. And actually I'm going to return true or false if the word lists includes the entered word. Okay, so if we test this out, Tesla is not valid. Whoops, and I made a typo. Telsa, of course, it's not valid, but Tesla will be valid. All right, so that one's valid. So this works again. Great. But if it's valid, I want to actually show if the word itself is correct, or at first place I want to check if the letter is inside the word or if the letter is at the correct location in the correct box. We're going to check the letters. Check letters is another function, and function check letters. And inside the check letters function, we actually going to loop over the 5 columns in the current row. So 4 and I as a length of 5. There we go. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab the char box. So let char box is document.getElement by ID of char box it was, and we're going to change the game state current row to it, and also the I. Oops, the I, because I is the current column in this case. And we're actually going to grab the text content of the char box. So for let letter is charbox dot text content. This is containing the letter at the current column inside our entered word. And in here we have 3 possibilities. So possibility that a word, the letter is at the correct location, that it contains, that the word contains the letter, or it's not in the word, and so we're going to do nothing actually. So if the letter equals to the game state dot hidden word at I, so yeah, the correct location in the letter, in the word, the char box must actually be updated. So class list add, and let's look back to our CSS file. We have these 3 clauses: empty, contains, and correct. In this case, the correct clause must be applied. All right. Else if the game state dot hidden word includes the letter, well, then we must do the same thing, class list add, and the class name contains must be applied. And if the word doesn't contain the entered letter, then the char box class list add empty. There we go. So if the word is containing the letter at the correct location, we had the correct. If it only includes the letter, but it's at this wrong position, we give the class name of contains. And if the letter isn't inside the word, we give the class name of empty. Okay, so that's it. We have checked the letters, and the game state can be updated now for the current row, going to the next row, and we have to reset the game state current column to 0, because you want to start off at the left side of our grid. All right, so let's test this. House. Great. We have 3 letters that aren't in the word, and the S and the E are. So horse, for example, will be the same thing. But I know that the word will be Tesla. Let me quickly check. Tesla, indeed, the word will be Tesla, because there is only one word with the S and the E that aren't at those 3 positions. So Tesla, the word is correct. So plain. Oh, the word is not valid, of course. Plain. Whoops, there we go. So this will be Tesla again. And let's check that. And that's correct, Tesla. And this time it will be horse. So there we go. House. 3 correct. 1 isn't in there. 4 correct, I'm sorry. So this works like a charm. So I'm able to write another word which is not valid. Tesla. Oh, not valid. I made a typo. There we go. So this works like a charm. But after we have checked those letters, I want to check if the word has been guessed. So check turn. So I'm going to check if my turn here is correct. So I'm going to pass on the word. Oh, turn. All right, go. Remove some lines here. There we go. Function check, not letters, check turn. And I want the entered word in here as well. And well, I have to define actually, if I have one, so let one is game state dot hidden word equals to the entered word. If so, the let one, the variable one, will be true. But I also want to know if the game is over. So if the game is over, which will be if I have checked the letters and it was my last attempt. So if the current row, game state, current row equals to 5, because we start at 0, we have 6 equals to 5. And then we just easily check if 1, we give an alert. Let's say, yay, you have won the game. Great. But else, if the game is over, I want to alert, let's say, game over, you didn't, and backslash didn't find the word. The word was, I'm going to prompt the word as well. The word was, and the way we're going to do this, plus here, the word was game state, hidden word. There we go. That's it. So, Tesla. Game over. You didn't find the word. The word was horse. Great. So, horse. Tesla. Audio. No. So, what should the word be? Plane. Yay, you have won the game. Great. All right, so that's actually how I would create the game. But we're going to expand the word list right here. So I'm going to let word list, and I'm going just to get rid of this. And word list will be, well, let's write it in a whole different way. Import word list from, and I'm going to words.js like that. And actually I have another file here where I have a gigantic word app, words.js. There we go, a gigantic list of words. There we go. So refresh. All right, something is wrong here. Let me check. Unexpected token. Oh yes, I need to define the type here of my import of my script is module. And if I refresh that, boom, it works. So console, it works, and I need to define also allow is the new word. So horse, okay, audio, kick and allow. I won the game. All right, so that's it. That's a working Wordle game. Yeah, that's it, Wordle game. So if you liked it, please subscribe, like, share, and yeah, if you want to see some other game created, put them in the comments down below and maybe I'll create them. So thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Bye bye.